Why do ancient Indian spices show up in Ethiopian markets from centuries ago? And why do some Ethiopian dishes taste like they came straight out of South India? This isn't a coincidence. There's a hidden connection most people have never heard about. You've probably heard about the Silk Road and maybe the Trans-Saharan trade routes. But there's one ancient route that quietly connected two of the world's oldest civilizations, Ethiopia and India. These weren't just trading partners. They influenced each other's food, religion, language, even genetics in ways that are still visible today. So how deep does this connection go? And why did it disappear from history books? Most people have no idea that Ethiopia and India had direct contact as early as 2,000 years ago. That's because mainstream history focuses on Western empires, Rome, Greece, Europe, and tends to ignore Africa and Asia unless it's about colonization. But these two ancient powers, one in the Horn of Africa, the other in the Indian subcontinent, were connected by the Indian Ocean, long before the British Empire came along. The real challenge? Piecing together a story that was almost erased. Let's go all the way back to the Aksumite Empire, Ethiopia's golden age. The Aksumite Empire, from 100 to 940 AD, was one of the most powerful trading empires in the ancient world. It sat right at the crossroads of Africa, the Middle East, and the Indian Ocean. At its height, Aksum controlled territories in modern-day Ethiopia, Eritrea, Sudan, Yemen, and had direct sea routes to India. This was a time when Indian ships would sail across the Arabian Sea, then into the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden, docking in Aksumite ports like Adulis. And what were they bringing? Spices, cardamom, cinnamon, turmeric, silk, and fine cotton from India's weaving centers. Gemstones, ivory, perfumes, incense. In return, Ethiopia sent gold and ivory, frankincense and myrrh, exotic animals, slaves, which unfortunately was part of the global trade structure at the time. These weren't just silent trades. These traders mingled, married, and passed on language, fashion, cooking techniques, and religious beliefs. Early Indian texts mention Ethiopia. The Indian epic Ramayana, dated around 500 BCE to 100 BCE, makes vague references to the land of the burnt faces, a poetic nod to Africa, likely Ethiopia. In Tamil Sangam literature from South India, Ethiopian traders are also described. They weren't just seen as foreigners, they were part of a broader world. Here's something wild. Tamarind, a fruit native to East Africa, became a major part of South Indian cuisine. But what's crazier is that it made its way back to Ethiopia through Indian trade routes. Tamarind is now essential to Indian dishes like sambar and rasam. But in Ethiopian cuisine, tamarind shows up in chutney-like sauces and stews. How did a native African fruit become a staple in India, only to return to Ethiopia as a foreign spice? That's the forgotten loop of ancient trade. Christianity came to Ethiopia in the 4th century AD, long before most of Europe. Around the same time, India was home to a thriving Christian community in Kerala, founded by Saint Thomas the Apostle, according to legend. Both groups developed their faith in isolation from Rome and Constantinople. Ethiopian Orthodox icons and South Indian Christian paintings share shockingly similar styles. Almond-shaped eyes, halos, golden backgrounds. Crosses from both regions show unique flared designs not seen in Western Christianity. And let's not forget Hinduism and its symbols. The lion, a powerful symbol in both cultures. The idea of sacred mountains, Ararat in Ethiopia, Kailash in India. Fire rituals, fasting, and purification. All concepts that appear across both religions. We tend to think of oceans as obstacles. But the Indian Ocean was a highway, a liquid road. Monsoon winds made sailing predictable. Traders from Gujarat, Kerala, and Tamil Nadu planned their trips based on wind patterns that blew from India to Africa for half the year, and reversed the other half. Arab, Persian, Indian, and African sailors all knew this, so Indian dhows would glide across to African shores in just a few weeks. These weren't isolated journeys, they were part of regular, massive commercial networks. Modern genetic studies have found clear Indian ancestry markers in Ethiopian highland populations, especially in areas close to ancient trade centers. Likewise, some tribal groups in Western India show traces of East African ancestry. This isn't just theory, it's science. Dr. Sarah Tishkoff, a geneticist from the University of Pennsylvania, found that up to 3% of Ethiopian DNA shows markers consistent with ancient South Indian ancestry, likely from traders who settled permanently. The ancient Ge'ez language of Ethiopia and Sanskrit have some surprising overlaps, not because they're directly related, but because of shared trade vocabulary. For example, words for spices, fabrics, and units of measurement sometimes have similar phonetic roots. Some Indian loanwords and Ethiopian languages still survive in dialects spoken in border regions today. Listen to a traditional Indian Carnatic music raga. Now listen to an Ethiopian Tazita scale. They sound eerily similar. That's because both musical traditions rely heavily on improvisation, modal scales, and string instruments. Even their dance forms, especially shoulder and torso movement in tribal dances, can look alike. Coincidence? Maybe. But more likely they were shaped by shared experiences. So what happened? The golden age of this trade ended with the arrival of the Portuguese and later the British in the Indian Ocean in the 15th and 16th centuries. These European powers rerouted trade to benefit themselves. They blocked ancient African-Asian networks and created Eurocentric maritime systems. Portuguese missionaries flooded Ethiopia. British colonialists took control of India. Slowly, the organic, mutual trade between India and Ethiopia got buried under layers of colonial control. But traces still remain, if you know where to look. There's one moment that captures this entire story. In 2021, archaeologists in Ethiopia uncovered Indian pottery, painted with typical South Indian designs, inside a 2,000-year-old Aksumite ruin. This wasn't an isolated find, it was surrounded by Arabian incense burners and Roman glassware. This discovery proved something crucial. Ethiopia wasn't isolated, it was part of a huge international trade web that included India, Rome, Persia, and Arabia. And it wasn't just passive trade, it was cultural exchange. That pottery, sitting buried for 2,000 years, quietly tells the story of a deep, ancient friendship that history almost forgot. So when you see an Indian spice in Ethiopian cooking, or hear an Ethiopian melody that sounds Indian, or see a Christian icon that looks like it came from Kerala, know this? You're not seeing coincidence. You're seeing the footprints of a forgotten world, a world where two ancient civilizations, Ethiopia and India, shared more than just goods. They shared dreams, stories, music, beliefs, and blood. And while colonialism tried to erase that history, the ruins, the recipes, and the people still remember. If you enjoy our journey, please like and subscribe to our channel, and if you like our content and want to support me, you are welcome to buy me a coffee. The link is in the description box below.